Over the last few weeks, we have looked at the legacies that are being left behind by various people. We've also witnessed the legacy God has been leaving behind. We've been studying the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their families. This week, we find ourselves in Genesis chapter 20. If you guys remember the account of Lot and the entire scenario around Sodom and Gomorrah is now in the past, in the distance. And the scene opens with Abraham continuing his journey. So Genesis chapter 20, verse 1 says, "From there Abraham journeyed towards the territory of the Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, 'She is my sister.' And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, 'Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife.' Now Abimelech had not approached her. So he said, 'Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this.' Then God said to him in the dream, 'Yes, I know that you've done this in the integrity of your heart. And it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all who are yours.' So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, 'What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you that you've brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done.' And Abimelech said to Abraham, 'What did you see that you did this thing?' And Abimelech said to Abraham, 'What did you see that you did this thing?' And Abraham said, 'I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, this is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham and returned Sarah his wife. Abimelech said, 'Behold, my land is before you, dwell where it pleases you.' To Sarah he said, 'Behold, I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you, and before everyone you are vindicated.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, and also healed his wife and female slaves so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife." This is an odd-sounding passage, isn't it? Let me summarize. Abraham had a very hot wife. Abraham was scared Abraham would die because of hot wife. Okay, we're tracking so far? Okay, hot wife is about 90 years old. Okay, somehow, if she's supposed to have children, she physically looked attractive enough where a king took wife into harem. Okay, those who are 90, I'm guessing she looked like she was 30. I have no idea. But somehow, they're like, hey. So he kept telling her, and you're like, wait a second, she was his sister and his wife? Oh, that's weird. Back then, they did that. The end. My thought is, without getting too technical, is I believe the bloodlines were a little more pure, and so you do not get all of the abnormalities that happen now when siblings and like cousins and stuff marry. It's sort of not the abnormalities, but the weaknesses in our genes get doubled, and so they come out a lot stronger. And so back then it wasn't as much of a case now. Now it's been thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands upon years. And so the consequences now of our genetic line is actually, it's greater. So that's Reader's Digest version of that craziness. And Abimelech was going to get punished by God because Abimelech made an innocent mistake. He got warned, and now we have this account. So verse 11, if you guys look at 11, verse 11 through 13, is the thrust of this passage. It says, Abraham said, I did it because I thought there's no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, this is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say of me, he is my brother. Abraham had a fear issue. He was scared, and as a result, he acted in ways that put others in danger and in very compromising situations. And at this moment, God allowed these fears and their dangers to come out of hiding and show Abraham what happens when you fail to trust the Lord and you live in fear. When it comes to fears, have you noticed they really, do fears really develop out in the open? They usually start in our minds. We don't like to brag about our fears. Doubts, uncertainties, struggling with God's promises and his word, it always starts in hiding in the privacy of our minds. Occasionally we open up, sometimes, and try to tell them to a friend or coworker. And oftentimes those fears, not by any purposeful act of our friend who we've decided to share this with, they're usually disregarded as unimportant or silly. So then we take these fears and we put them back away, and we put them back into hiding. We put them back into our dark room. If you guys have ever developed film, now we have these fancy iPods and iPhones, and they take 90 gigabyte pictures a piece, and they're perfect. But back in the day, like 20 years ago, they used this stuff called film. Kids are like, what? And they had to do this huge process of bringing the film into a dark room because light would ruin it. And like undeveloped 35 millimeter film, we bring our imaginations and concerns, our fears, and we spend time in the dark room developing them. We develop ideas of the future, what could happen, what we think will happen, and we develop our masterpieces and eventually bring these images out into our life. Abraham feared for his safety. His fear led him to put his wife into a compromising situation. And also, his fear, as he put Sarah into this compromising situation, endangered an entire community. His fear, his masterpiece that he'd created in the dark room of his life, he brought out, and it finally revealed itself into the open. And the damages were severe. There's great danger in allowing our fears to develop in our dark room. We have about seven fears. I'm going to write them down for you so you can write these down. But according to this passage, we will see 7 dangers of fear. 7 dangers of fear. Fear feeds off of our lack of understanding. Look at verse 11. Abraham said, I did it because I thought there is no fear of God at all in this place. Abimelech was a Philistine king. Gerar was one of the cities of Philistia. And as you know, not maybe as you know, but in the Bible, the Philistines were known as the enemy of Israel. And if Israel is God's chosen people, if you are enemy with God's chosen people, then therefore you are bad. So you have good and bad. Philistia was known as not the greatest place to live if you were serving God. So from one standpoint, we can get it, all right? Abraham knows how things go, in those days. And if you had a hot wife, You brought her in. Most likely they were like, I want her, you're dead. And they would kill the husband and take the wife. So, yeah, that made sense. But Abimelech wasn't like that. See, he feared for his life because he could not see the whole picture. He made assumptions. How often are our fears based in incorrect assumptions about people? So he assumed Philistia, bad. King, bad. Wife, good looking. Bad, I'm in trouble. He assumed. So fear feeds off a lack of understanding. It makes assumptions. Second, fear lives lost in the realm of the unknown. Once again, we have back in verse 11. He did this because he thought, they will kill me because of my wife. Fear always dwells in the future. It can't live in the past. You know why? Because we've already been there, done that. It can't live in the present because guess what? I'm still here. Every second I'm still here, it's the present. Fear lives in the future. He thought they would kill him. He was out there. He was scared that because of his wife, he would die. He plays around in the future. Now, it says Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. Jesus says, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Jesus says, stop worrying about what's going on in the future. You have no control over it anyway. You hardly have enough control over your life right now from minute to minute, day by day. Stop worrying about what could possibly, maybe happen in the future. Worry about what's going on today. Fear loves the future. It loves to use our finite minds, and emphasize that finite, our limited minds, and we like to go out there, and in essence, we're trying to play God and figure out what is exactly happening in the future. Now, how many of you guys know what's going to happen tomorrow? Okay, good job. Yes. Okay. We don't know. Fear lives lost in the realm of the unknown, and it gets us stuck. The third danger is fear has a habit of forgetting God's promises. Look at Genesis chapter 12. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 12. We'll be back to 20, so maybe you want to save your spot. But Genesis chapter 12, there's this big thing that we've been emphasizing pretty much every single week. Genesis chapter 12, it's this thing called the Abrahamic covenant. Lord said to Abraham, go from your country and from your kindred and from your father's house to a land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Killing is very dishonorable. Abraham was feared for his life because he thought he was going to be, in essence, dishonored by a king. You know what God said to the people who dishonored Abraham? God is going to curse them. There's the promise. Fear has a habit of forgetting God's promises. Now, look actually in Genesis chapter 12. Look at verse 10. There was a famine in the land, so Abraham went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. And when he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is my wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Doesn't that sound familiar? This happened quite possibly within a few years of God promising, I'm going to make you a great nation. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse anyone who dishonors you. That quick, Abraham feared for his life. Fear has a habit of forgetting God's promises. And as we see in Genesis chapter 20, it sounded like any time they went to a new place. Sarah was a sister. He did not mention, she's my wife, she's my sister, because he was scared for his own life. And let's keep going in Genesis chapter 12. He says, say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. Man, what a guy, what a guy. When Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram, and he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. So Pharaoh called Abraham and said, what is this that you've done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her for my wife? Now here's her wife, take her and go. And Pharaoh gave men ordering him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. They kicked him right out of the country. It was a habitual pattern. Abraham feared for his life. He had a habit of forgetting God's promises. See, this is my fear when I walk around, Fred Meyer and stuff, that I'm going to get mugged for my beautiful wife. So Nikki's not here to say that. So when you listen to this, Nikki, I love you. And sorry if that embarrasses you. Okay. I had that in there. See, that's not made up. I added that line in there. So, all right, their fourth fear. Fear drags innocent people into the mess. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 20, verse 4. Now Abimelech had not approached her, so he said, Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Abimelech had a good point here. I didn't know. And not only that, they told me, I even tried to inquire. I had no idea. Look at verse 7. Now then, this is what God says, now then return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all who are yours. Well, that sounds lovely. Now this innocent person is being threatened with death. All because Abraham's fear. All because of Abraham's fear. Verse 8, so Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all of his servants and told them all these things, and the men were very afraid. Wait, what? We're getting punished because of your ignorance, king? That you had really no way to know anyway? Yes. Whew. We find out in verse 18, the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Not only was God saying you will die, but I am going to kill your entire town. Towns depended on children. No children means the town dies. The town will just dry up and disappear. Children are the future. And God had every intention of wiping out the future of this town. See, fear drags innocent people into the mess. Fear of change leads to accusations. Fear of becoming unimportant leads to anger. Fear of failure leads to a lack of commitment. Our fears express themselves and drags other people into the mess. I just want to say, some people might have fear over our church dying or whatever. It's not dying. There's a song, God is on the move every day. God is on the move at our church. Let's stop acting and reacting in fear over something that happens tomorrow. Our church is not dying. Our church is not dead. Our church is very much alive, and God is doing some awesome things. So if I hear that, I'm just gonna bonk you, okay? From now on, okay? Church is not dying. God is working, all right? So let's not react in fear, but keep moving on like we're supposed to because we got a big God. Number 5. Fear damages your testimony. Look at verse 7. Return the man's wife, for he is a prophet. Uh-oh. And verse 17, then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and female slaves so that they bore children. I want you to think about how awkward this is. So, God of the universe, all-powerful, begins to communicate and speak to the king of this Philistine town. Probably didn't happen every day, where God of the universe goes and just talks to people. Scared the bejeebies right out of Abimelech, to the point that he's getting his town, and like, something is going on. And then you find out, wait, the guy who lied to me, God, he's your prophet? See, fear damages our testimony. How embarrassing do you think that was? God of the universe promises great and mighty things in Abraham. Abraham, as he's got to finally exposes this and brings this out into the light, he's like, yes, yeah, I'm a prophet chosen by God, and this is actually my wife. And God is communicating with this king, and the king's like, you got to pray to rescue us because we're dying. I don't even know how yet. We are dying. Fix it, Abraham. And Abraham had to go and pray to God to heal. How awkward do you think that was for Abraham? See, unbelievers and other Christians, they watch how we respond in stressful, fearful situations. And you know how Christians, in quotes, respond in fearful situations in America? I wanted to do an illustration by me running up and down the aisle screaming. Just imagine me doing that. That's what we do. We react in fear all the time, and it damages our testimony. If we believe God is as big as we say he is, we should not be acting in fear. And we freak out. They want to see if we believe our God is actually as big as we say he is. Because if we say he's big, that means we can trust him, and we should trust him. Fear damages your testimony. Fear acts out in other ways. Verse 2. So he says, Abraham said of Sarah's wife, she is my sister. Okay. And then verse 13. How can I find it? And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, this is the kindness you must do to me at every place to which we come. Say of me, he is my brother. But we're like, hey, he was sort of telling the truth. He was lying. He knew what they would think. He knew what they would think. Because Pharaoh and Abimelech, you brag about your hot wife. Abraham, you lied. See, Abraham's fear acted out in lies. Other times it acts out in anger. Other times it acts out in a lack of unity or accusations or laziness, irresponsibility. That fear acts out in so many different ways. It doesn't just stay fear. It becomes other things. And lastly, as we'll see, fear doesn't fix anything. It doesn't do anything. It just gets you into more trouble. See, the passage ends with verse 18, a very sort of ominous tone. The Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. That's just ominous. We're like, okay, God, why did you close all the wombs? That's sort of weird, okay? None of the ladies could have babies. Come on, it's a big deal. What did they do? Had Sarah had Isaac yet? Okay. Look at chapter 21, and you guys' little subtitle on your Bible. Mine says the birth of Isaac. If Abimelech had slept with Sarah, it's quite possible that the line of David, that the future line of Jesus Christ would have already been messed up from the get-go. Because God had a perfect plan to have Isaac and Jacob and the sons go to Egypt, go to Israel, kick out the Canaanites, have David, line of David, Joseph and Mary, Jesus Christ, Savior of all. It's all planned. And Abraham's fear almost messed that up. It didn't really fix anything either. He just left embarrassed. Nothing got fixed, and Sarah still hadn't had a child either by the end. That's such an ominous line. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Everybody else started having children, and she left the town still unable to have them. Up until chapter 21, which we'll talk about another time. See, living in fear doesn't, this is what's a good reminder, living in fear doesn't hinder the Lord. Abraham reacted in fear. Did it stop God's master plan? No, God just threatened Abimelech, and Abimelech, a pagan king, did what was right. Living in fear doesn't hinder the Lord. Living in fear just complicates our life. That's all it does. See, fear wages a dangerous war in your mind. It wants you to doubt the promises of God and turn your focus on how you can or cannot fix whatever it is. Now, if you guys put away your notes, don't yet. There's actually still 3 more points. So, we're not closing yet. Fears are contained in little 35 millimeter film. They want us to bring them, hide them away. They want us to put them in, as I learned, you put them, the 35 millimeter film, in the darkroom, into chemicals. You shake the chemicals, and you do it right, and eventually they come out these little negatives. Okay? They can be exposed to light now, but they're too tiny for fear. See, fear, you can't really see pictures that are this small. Fears want to be promoted to the 8.5 by 11. They want to move up from the pocket to the nice little picture on the desk, to the big picture on the wall, to all consuming in your life. They want to get bigger. And they want us to go and take those little negatives and go in and baby them and make them bigger and bring these wonderful pictures to life. But we know that what fear wants to bring to life is actually destruction. Fear wants to destroy your life. Fear wants you to stay in that dark room because undeveloped pictures have an enemy. It's called light. It's why you keep things in the dark room. Don't let light in. Because as soon as light comes in, light exposes and destroys the film. Light destroys fear. So how do we not fear? We got to drag our fears out of the dark room and into the light. Oh. You guys notice how God finally brought Abraham's fear out into the open? He drug it right into the light in front of everybody. Abraham, look. This is your fear exposed. And you never hear him messing up like this again. He learned it. Only when fear is exposed can it be revealed for the fraud it is. So I got three ways. You, every day, can bring your fears out into the light. Number one, it's always big, remember who you are. See, Abraham was a prophet, the chosen person of God. You can't really get up on the food chain here. Abraham was chosen by God to do some amazing things. We are Christians called and saved by the blood of Jesus. We should approach our life from a position of freedom and fearlessness. We know what's going to happen to us. There's no darkness when we die. We have to remember who we are. We have to fall right back that I am a child of God, chosen and called out by him. I have been adopted by him to one day inherit eternal life and unimaginable riches. That is who we are through Jesus, and that's what we have to remember. So when we start thinking of our fears, first start off with, hey, I am a child of the King. I am a child of God, the sovereign ruler of the entire universe. We have to start there. The second one, we have to speak our fears. Abraham was made, Abimelech made Abraham give an account. What in the world just happened? Explain yourself, Abraham. This makes no sense. Oftentimes, when we express our fears, when we express and put our fears out into the open before an almighty, powerful God, they get really small. See, speaking our fears begin to expose the fear, the picture, to light. By speaking your fear, by sharing and with those who are close and those you know here at the church or family or before the Lord, as we express our fears, it gives God and it gives God's children opportunity to speak God's word, in essence, to the fear. Hey, I get that fear. I've had that too. This is how God helped me with it. And when we begin to speak our fear, we realize, wow. Okay, I'll just use an example. I'll just run off. If I don't have a house, by July 31st, we're just going to be homeless. Okay, I can take that. Now, those on the outside, though, how would they respond? How would you respond if the pastor sort of became homeless? Come on, how would you respond? There we go, live in the church. Hey, I got a bedroom in my house. I got a tent. You can come and take a shower. I mean, we'd respond. I could sleep on your couch. We could come in and raid you guys. But you guys would offer up. If someone was really homeless, people would step up. So how foolish is that fear? How foolish would that fear be? That's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. I don't have that fear because I applied, God's word to it. But still, that's what happens when we speak our fear. Man, because them Republicans have been predicting doom and gloom on our nation. How many years are we going on now? Obama's gonna kill our country, man. He's gonna destroy it. I'm still here. Building's still here. The economy still seems to be okay. China hasn't invaded yet. We live in fear. Speak your fear. And then just let's all look at it together and say, that's a little goofy. I know it is, and I'm scared of it. Okay. Well, we'll pray for you. We'll help you out, We'll try to get behind here. Now, that does not mean, I want to clarify, it does not mean I fully endorse all the actions President Obama has done, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. It's always somebody's going to run off with that the wrong direction. Just saying, speak your fear. Get it out there in the open so the light can hit it. Number 3, look at Jesus. Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 30 is a great passage I encourage you to check out. Philippians 1, 12 through 30. Paul here is in prison writing to the Philippian church, and he is sort of in danger. He could die as a result of staying in this jail and what's going to end up happening and the whole shebang. And so he tells the church, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. See, he brought that, remember who I am. I'm a child of God. I'm going to go to heaven one day, or I'm going to stay here. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Because we win. He says in verse 22, he says, if I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. Yet which I shall choose, I don't know, I can't tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and to be with Christ, for that is far better, but to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. The greatest fear of all of us is a fear of death. I mean, that's it. That is what more people ultimately, when we boil it down to, it ultimately ends up in we fear when we're going to die. And Paul's like, I could get beaten, abused, torn apart, ripped asunder, and the whole shebang, and that means I get to live with Jesus. Or I get to stay here and I get to minister to you and encourage you to live for Jesus. That should be our perspective. He had no reason to fear. So the last point, look at Jesus. Keep your eyes firmly implanted. And you can read the passage. Paul's eyes were firmly fixed on the gospel and what that has done for him and what Jesus Christ has done for him. Everything he did was in that direction. So I encourage you to check out that passage here this week. Fear is driven by self-preservation. Love is driven by Christ's denial of himself, where he sacrificed himself to preserve. The opposite of fear is love. Fear is driven by self-preservation. Our life should be one of love, and it should be driven by Christ's example on the cross. He sacrificed himself, not to preserve himself, but to preserve and to rescue us. Keep looking at Jesus. Bring your fears into the light. It'll take time. It's going to take some time. Some of your fears have gotten pretty big. You know, you'll find some fears have been really developed. They might have already started taking over your life, and then you'd be really exposed to the light. Let God work.